Epstein Island. The place power didn't want you to see. The island that should not exist. There are places on this planet that look like paradise. Until you learn what happened there. White sand, turquoise water, palm trees swaying in silence, and secrets buried so deep that even billionaires, presidents, and royalty are afraid to talk about them. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not a movie plot. This is not fiction. This is Little St. James, better known to the world as Epstein Island. An island so infamous, it became a symbol of unchecked power, unimaginable abuse, and a global network that many believe is still being protected. Tonight, we're not just talking about a man. We're talking about a system. A system that allowed one man to traffic minors for decades. A system that collapsed only when it could no longer hide. And a system that, according to many victims, was never truly dismantled. So the question is not what happened on Epstein Island. The real question is, who was it built for? And why do so many names connected to it still walk free? Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Edward Epstein was not born powerful. No royal blood, no famous last name, no inherited empire. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1953. A middle-class kid with a talent for math and an unusual ability to charm powerful people. By his early 20s, Epstein was already teaching at an elite private school, despite not having a college degree. His students included the children of Wall Street executives. That's where he learned his first rule of power. Access matters more than credentials. Soon after, Epstein entered finance. No clear records, no transparent clients, no public explanation for how he made his fortune. Yet suddenly, he was managing billions, flying private, living in mansions, hosting politicians, scientists, and royalty. And always surrounded by young women, very young. In 1998, Epstein bought Little St. James, a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Official price, around $7.95 million. To locals, it was strange. The island had no public access, no tourism, no development permits that made sense. But construction began almost immediately. A massive main residence, underground structures, security cameras, a mysterious temple-like building with no windows. Boats were warned to stay away. Locals began whispering. They gave the island a name long before the media did. They called it Pedophile Island. According to court documents and victim testimonies, Epstein's system was disturbingly simple. Girls, some as young as 13 or 14, were recruited under false promises. Massage jobs, tutoring, modeling opportunities, money for school. They were flown to New York, Florida, New Mexico, and eventually, Little St. James. Private jets landed in St. Thomas. From there, helicopters ferried guests directly to the island. No customs, no immigration checks, no questions. Once on the island, victims say they were isolated, controlled, threatened, paid to recruit other girls. It was a self-sustaining trafficking loop. And Epstein wasn't alone. Flight logs exist. Court documents exist. Witness statements exist. They point to something deeply disturbing. Epstein was not supplying victims for himself. He was supplying them for others. Men of influence. Men of power. Men whose names shape global decisions. Politicians. Billionaires, academics, foreign leaders. Some names were officially confirmed as associates. Others were named by victims under oath. Important note, being named does not equal guilt. But being repeatedly connected to a known trafficking hub raises serious questions. Why would the world's most powerful people visit a private island owned by a convicted sex offender? And why were those visits never properly investigated? In 2005, police in Florida received reports. Multiple underage girls. Same story. Same man. Jeffrey Epstein. The evidence was overwhelming. But then something unbelievable happened. Epstein didn't face real justice. Instead, he received one of the most controversial plea deals in U.S. history. A deal so lenient it shocked legal experts. He served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail. He was allowed to leave 6 days a week. Victims were never informed. And most importantly, his co-conspirators were granted immunity. Ask yourself, who gets that kind of protection? After the plea deal, the story faded. Media coverage dropped. Investigations stalled. Victims were silenced. Epstein returned to wealth and influence. The island stayed active. Jets kept flying. The world moved on, but the victims never did. They waited. And then, in 2018, everything changed. In July 2019, federal prosecutors arrested Jeffrey Epstein again. This time, no deal. This time, it was sex trafficking of minors. This time, the evidence was undeniable. Searches uncovered. Thousands of photos, hard drives, CDs labeled with name, us. Hidden cameras. The walls were closing in. For the first time, it looked like the network might be exposed. And then, August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. Official ruling, suicide. But nearly every safeguard failed. Cameras malfunctioned. Guards fell asleep. Cellmate removed. Coincidence after coincidence. To this day, polls show most people do not believe the official story. Because Epstein's death solved one problem and created 1,000 more. After Epstein's death, Little St. James was abandoned. Silent. Empty. But not erased. In 2023, the island was sold. Renovations began. Some buildings were demolished. Others were sealed. Evidence? Gone. Or was it? Victims say justice was buried along with the truth. In recent years, thousands of pages of documents were unsealed. Flight logs, emails, depositions. Names resurfaced. Some denied everything. Some went silent. Some claimed ignorance. But not a single powerful client has been convicted. Not one. Epstein is dead. The island is sold. So why does this story still haunt us? Because Epstein wasn't the disease. He was the symptom. A broker, a facilitator, a gatekeeper. If one man could build an operation this large, then how many others exist? And how many islands are still hidden? Little St. James may no longer belong to Jeffrey Epstein, but the silence remains. The unanswered questions remain. And the victims are still waiting. Waiting for accountability. Waiting for names. Waiting for a system brave enough to prosecute itself. Because the most terrifying part of Epstein Island was never the island. It was the realization that power can buy silence. And sometimes, justice never lands. So the next time you see a private jet disappear into the clouds, ask yourself, who's on board? Where are they going? And who's making sure? You never find out. Before the headlines, before the arrests, before the documentaries, there were voices, young voices, broken voices, ignored voices. For years, survivors tried to tell their stories. They spoke to police officers who didn't listen, lawyers who advised silence, media outlets that considered it too risky. Some were paid to disappear. Others were threatened. Many were simply dismissed. They were called liars, gold diggers, unreliable witnesses. Yet their stories never changed. Different cities, different years, same island, same man, and the same pattern of abuse. What made these women dangerous to the system was not what they knew. It was who they could identify. Investigators believe Epstein didn't just traffic victims. He collected leverage. Hidden cameras were allegedly installed in bedrooms. Guests were recorded. Everything was archived. If true, this explains something critical. Why Epstein was untouchable for so long. Blackmail is more powerful than money. And Epstein had both. Victims recall being forced to participate in acts while others watched. Some say they were told, "Do what you're told. These people control everything." Whether all recordings still exist is unknown. But if even a fraction survived, they would represent the most dangerous evidence on Earth. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding Epstein was his wealth. No clear business model. No transparent rent investment strategy. No public hedge fund records. Yet his bank accounts moved hundreds of millions. Where did the money come from? Some theories suggest offshore tax havens, anonymous trusts, intelligence-linked funding. Epstein had connections to former intelligence officials, defense contractors, foreign financiers. Was he just a criminal? Or was he something else entirely? A fixer, a collector, a middleman between power and secrecy. The money trail leads everywhere and nowhere. Every empire has a lieutenant. For Epstein, it was Ghislaine Maxwell. Daughter of media tycoon Robert Maxwell. Himself surrounded by mystery. She wasn't just an assistant. She was a recruiter, a manager, a disciplinarian. Victims say Maxwell normalized the abuse. She gained trust. She enforced rules. She silenced resistance. In court, she was convicted. But her sentence raised a disturbing issue. If she helped traffic girls to Epstein, then who were the girls trafficked to? That question remains unanswered. This is the question that refuses to die. Why, after multiple victims, thousands of documents, years of investigation, has no client list been officially released? Prosecutors claim insufficient evidence, statute limitations, jurisdictional issues. Critics say political pressure, national security concerns, institutional protection. Because prosecuting Epstein was easy. Prosecuting his clients, that would mean prosecuting power itself. Several major media organizations had Epstein stories years before his arrest. They didn't run them. Why? Some journalists later admitted legal threats, pressure from executives, fear of losing access. One reporter described it as a story too big to publish. Think about that. A global child trafficking operation. Too big for the truth. Satellite images revealed unusual features on Little St. James. Underground rooms, tunnels, restricted areas. One structure drew particular attention. A domed building with symbols. No official explanation. No clear purpose. Some called it a temple. Others, a private observation room. Whatever its function, it was not built for tourists, and not built for innocents. Multiple former intelligence insiders have hinted at Epstein's ties to agencies. Nothing proven, everything denied. But patterns matter. Protection, immunity, silence. Epstein moved across borders effortlessly, avoided consequences repeatedly, accessed people others never could. If he wasn't protected, he was at least useful, and useful people are rarely exposed.